Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode number 51 of Let's Go Racing with David Starr. Tyler Jones here with you. So glad to have you with us. Coming up on today's show, going to be joined by the great Justin Melillo of the RacingExperts.com as we are going to talk all things iRacing with Justin, get his perspective, and also look ahead to the 2022 season, which is just a few weeks away. A complete breakdown with Justin coming up in just a few moments from right now. Plus, we'll have our news and notes, as well as our Ask David segment coming up at the end of today's show. David Starr joins us right now. David, how we doing?
Man, we're doing great, man. Just got home, and it's been a busy week so far this week, just in meetings and working at our Team Texas High Performance Driving School race shop. And man, I'm excited to have Justin on here and talk about some new things going on in our sport. And it's exciting times, man. Daytona is almost here, and yeah, it's exciting, and it's right around the corner, guys.
Yeah, Daytona almost here. The Clash before that at the LA Coliseum. It's all exciting of what's ahead over the next few weeks as we get you ready for it. We'll certainly have you covered here on Let's Go Racing. Dominic Aragon of the RacingExperts.com is here as well. Dom, how we feeling?
Yeah, feeling great, guys. Good to see you guys again after a 2-week absence.
Yes, it is good to see your shining face.
Well, thank you, Tyler. Yes. Thank you. I feel even better after a comment like that.
You're not ugly this week.
I'm not what?
You're not ugly this week.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You know, I took extra time to get extra pretty just for you.
Well, thank you.
You're
maybe think about shaving the beard next time. You know, like
I think so. I think that's
a little ready.
And hey, Justin, can't you tell there's a lot of love on this podcast, man?
Oh, absolutely.
Now, David,
I'll get a haircut just for you, Tyler, next week.
Hey, I got a haircut. David, you're about to get a haircut, right?
I'm getting one tomorrow, man. I need one. You know, I got to clean myself up a little bit. You know, but yeah, that's tomorrow.
What's your barber's name? Let's shout them out.
Oh, Tammy. She's
Tammy.
Awesome. Yes, she's been cutting my hair for probably 15 years. You know.
David, I got a feeling you go in for like one of those $15 supercuts.
No, I wouldn't. No, not at all, man. No. It's more like $50. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Oh wow.
You have enough hair.
I'll tell you what though, the best haircuts though are free, Tyler. During the pandemic, my brother was cutting my hair.
With like a Flowbee or something?
No, he had the whole kit and everything, and he's like, "Hey, can I practice on you?" And now he shaved me like 12 years ago, right before senior photos in high school. That went over great with the family, but he's since gotten a lot better.
Now, David, how do you have enough hair for a $50 haircut?
Well, the ones I have left, man, I get them cut, Tyler.
Well, before we bring in Justin, David, tell us what's going on this week with you, man.
Man, just trying to finish up our NASCAR, our NASCAR, hopefully have an announcement here real soon. Just finishing up some of our sponsor deals and, just trying to finish up things. It's always, Daytona's right around the corner. You know, we're just now finalizing things. And, but man, I'm excited. It's always, you guys know how it is in the off season, man. It's a fun time, but it's also, you're nervous and you're anxious. And so, man, I'm just hoping to have have an announcement here real soon, and just getting ready for our racing school, gearing up for the year, getting our race cars ready, getting things ready to start, bringing in some race fans and driving some race cars at Texas Motor Speedway. So lots going on, and that's a wonderful thing.
Real quick, speaking of that, you got some dates lined up and such. Where can people get more information if they're intrigued about the racing school, David?
Man, if they're close to Texas or want to come to the Texas Motor Speedway and drive a real NASCAR race car at about 155 miles an hour with 9 other race cars on the track, you're one of 10, and it's the closest thing of being in NASCAR race. But man, you catch a slower car, you pass them, or they're passing you. But you go to teamtexas.com. It's our website. It gives some information about our NASCAR racing school based at Texas Motor Speedway.
Awesome. TeamTexas.com for more information there.
Absolutely.
Dominic, our next guest, you know so well, and he's been a friend of ours for a long time. You know Justin better than I do, and you guys go way back. Give us the intro to Justin, and maybe tell us about the backstory of you two.
Sure. So, Justin, we say on the show all the time, we know these people they're really close, but I really reserve this word for special people. And Justin's kind of like an older brother to me. I've known him, and Justin probably would know more of an accurate date, but at least since 2008, 2009, we used to sim race against each other. And he came aboard the Racing Experts in 2014, and he and I co-owned the website. And from that, Justin has gone on to work with traction.gg, excuse me. And he's covering eSports and all the happenings in NASCAR. And he's gotten to do some really cool things over the last couple of years. And he is somebody that I look up to. He's a really cool person in the industry, and he's somebody who's definitely made a name for himself and has found that niche in the NASCAR community. Justin, man, it's so awesome to have you here on Let's Go Racing with us this week.
I am absolutely honored to be on this week. I really thank you guys for having me on. Very, very touching there. You got me there, Dominic. But yeah, very cool. And yeah, I just got off of work about an hour ago with traction.gg, and writing about esports and racing video games now is what I'm doing full time.
Yeah, Justin, when you look at that and what you're doing now and getting to cover esports and this is your 9-to-5 job Monday through Friday, what do you think your 10-year-old self would have said if you could see into the future? If you were able to go back in time and tell, like, look, just be patient and look what's going to happen, what would 10-year-old Justin have said about where you're at now?
Well, I mean, 10-year-old Justin wanted to just get a foot into NASCAR, whatever way it took. And, you know, that a lot of that form came through the video games, through the NASCAR video games growing up, through NASCAR Racing 2003 season, which you and I, where you said where we met, and that's the absolute truth. We raced each other in a league called UNSER, and we would battle against each other on our computers on a, at the time, a 6-year-old video game. Now it's turning 19 this year, that same video game, and people are still playing NR 2003. And to, you know, to have turned that relationship into what it is today, where we met up, and you got me on the Racing Experts, and got me out to the racetrack from 2015 onward. I think I've been to at least one race every year covering for TRE, and now that's turned into eNASCAR with the big boom with the esports ever since the pandemic. And I am absolutely lucky and blessed that I had already put my foot forward into that area of racing. So yeah, it's really cool to see where it's at, and 10-year-old me would be absolutely ecstatic.
Oh yeah.
And Tyler, I got to tell you, Tyler, David, the guy's being humble. Justin, when he says that we were competing on the racetrack of that league, no, he was winning races. I was usually the last guy running, making sure I wasn't crashing and bringing out cautions.
You were trying to stay out of his way, when he laughed you.
Exactly. I would just want to stay out of his way. He could use me as a pick, as a lap car. And anytime you saw Justin in the server, you're like, oh, crap, really? He showed up again.
Like David,
you know, he's going to win.
You were driving like David, is what you're saying.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, yeah, anytime you saw Justin's name in that UNSR server, you're like, oh, great. We know Justin's going to be a contender for the win. That's one harder position to have to fight for on the racetrack. But yeah, great competitor, even greater motorsport journalist. And yeah, it's awesome.
Well, and on the journalist side, that's one thing I want to bring up here is that, you know, as somebody that, you know, for me, you know, I cover, you know, all sorts of sports, not just NASCAR. And guys, I would say that there is not a harder sport to get into full time as a journalist than NASCAR, because the jobs are just so limited, and the jobs that are available, I don't know, a whole lot of them pay a lot of money, to be honest. And so, Justin, you know, for somebody like you that has truly grinded in this, you know, spending your own money, traveling across the country, going from racetrack to racetrack. What does it mean now to finally have made it to be in this thing full time, Justin?
It's crazy to think of where I was the first time I stepped foot in the NASCAR infield in 2015 at Dover. I was terrified. I was intimidated. I had no idea what I was doing. There were so many people that knew exactly what was going on. I didn't know nobody. I didn't know anything that was going on. I didn't know procedures or anything like that. And you know, you work at it, you grind at it, you figure out what the certain things are. You talk to certain people, you get those connections and everything. And you know, by 20, I think it was 2019, I was traveling to about maybe a third of the NASCAR schedule, just driving, you know, from track to track, like you said, in my tiny blue car. And you know, it's so hard, like you said, to get your foot in, because I wasn't making anything doing that. I was just trying to get my foot in the door still at that point, 4 years after I'd you know, been there. NASCAR media, it's very there are a lot of cliques that are in the NASCAR, you know, media center and stuff
Very
like that.
competitive, yes.
Very competitive people, very, you know, interesting individuals that are there. I'll just say that. And you know, it's, you know, you try as much as you can, and I still want to be a part of that, and I still, you know, enjoy going to the racetracks, and I'm gonna really enjoy, you know, doing that again at Daytona to start off the regular season. But it was probably around like 2018. I gave Dominic a text, because, you know, we're just still trying to get like viewership onto TRE. It's still growing and growing and growing, and I'm like, man, nobody's talking about eNASCAR. Nobody's talking about these guys that have these insane setups and insane rigs and go out there and compete for, at the time, was tens of thousands of dollars. Now it's hundreds of thousands of dollars that they're competing for. And I'd been following it since the start in 2010, when eNASCAR Coca-Cola Series, and that what it's now called, is when that started. And I just thought, these guys kind of deserve some type of coverage. So I started writing about the races that were going on online, and covering them, and being a multimedia journalist on a computer is, you know, not so different from being a multimedia journalist at the racetrack. You got to talk to certain, you know, race directors and officials to, you know, get the proper credentials to get into these types of situations. And I'm lucky enough to be one of the few right now that can go on iRacing whenever I want, and jump into any of these sessions, because they do lock them down. It's not like you just go in and watch these races. They broadcast them on iRacing, on like Twitch and YouTube, and some of these races have made it on to Fox Sports 1 in the last couple of years. So it's not that different, and it's crazy that now this is my career, where I'm just, all I'm doing is you know, right now, for what I'm doing with traction, is more than eNASCAR. It's a lot of different motor esports and stuff. So there was just a 24 hours of Le Mans virtual race that went on, and it was on a completely different platform. You know, there's iRacing, and there's R Factor, and there's all these other games like NR 2003. They did a 24-hour race simulating the Le Mans race, and that was really cool to have done. And there are just so many different other types of sim racing events that go on all throughout the world. It's really cool, definitely.
Yeah, that's incredible. And you know, Dominic and I each have, you know, several stories that we could brag about Justin about, you know, of over the years. But I got to say, I got to mention this real quick, guys. One time, 2018, which you just mentioned, when you made a point to go to all those races, me, Dominic, and how many of us were in that stayed at that place out there in Daytona? What, about 8 or 9 of us, all packed into one place in Ormond Beach? And
2019 Daytona 500, yeah.
Yeah, and we were a little slow getting out of bed. We had a little fun the night before, we'll put it that way. And I had a radio show to do at 8 a.m. Eastern time that morning, and didn't get out the door quite in time. And so, you know, I was scrambling, trying to get on the air, David, to get on radio. And so Justin just happened to have in-car Wi-Fi. I didn't even know in-car Wi-Fi existed prior to this. And so I get connected up and I do the first 30 minutes of my radio show from Justin's car with a perfect, clean connection, sound clear as day, and no one had any idea that we were driving on the road in Justin's car and me doing a radio show. Something I'll never forget and something I'm very appreciative of Justin for.
That's awesome.
That was definitely a fun time. That whole situation. We definitely had fun the night before, and I'm never been a heavy sleeper, so just lucky to be in that situation at the time.
One of the just hearing y'all all talk and y'all's friendship and y'all's working relationships and hearing y'all go back to the Unter days where you're Untering on the computer racing against each other, but the cool thing about what I'm hearing is the passion, the heart you have, the dedication to the sport. As a NASCAR or a motorsports journalist, it's not easy. And hearing you speak, Justin, of the different people that are involved on that side of it, which I don't know a whole lot of them. You really got to want something bad enough to get in your own car and travel around the United States, sleep in your car, or sleep in a house or a hotel with 10 people, and trying to figure out how to navigate this sport that you want to be a part of. And those are cool stories, and the friendships you make on the way. And, I just look at Tyler and Dominic and yourself, it hasn't been easy. And from where y'all started to where you're at today, you have to be proud of those accomplishments and where you're at, because, it's not given to anybody, it's earned. And and nobody earns it more than you guys. So it's pretty cool to hear what it's taken and what it does take to make it as a journalist in our sport. It's not easy. No part of it's easy, even if you want to cover the sport. And man, I love journalists, the media, people that cover our sport inside and out. They really let the world know. Without journalism and without, the media, I don't think our sport would be as popular as it is around the world, So I appreciate what you guys have done and where you've ended up. I have a question, though. I don't know much about eSports. I'm a race car driver, have been my whole life. And, and during the pandemic, man, it was the coolest thing to turn on Fox Sports 1 or Fox. I don't remember NBC. I think it was on NBC, on national network, and see freaking racing again. It was exciting. It was amazing, and then not knowing that much about it, but listening to you speak about it, and hearing what you were just saying, Justin, that at one point in time, people were making, thousands of dollars. And I think y'all said that they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's amazing. It's obviously that world, that type of racing is all new to me, but I love it. I think it's good for our sport. It brings new eyes to our sport. And I really think in the future, a lot of our future racers, and we have some racing in NASCAR today, their first start was eSports or iRacing, you know what I mean? And I just think it's just a brilliant way to introduce our sport to young men and women. And who knows, after they're involved in it and winning the type of money you guys are just all talking about, hell, I want to jump on it. If it's hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'm like, wow, but man, what a cool, that's really, really awesome. I mean, there's some superstar hero race car drivers out there that are what would you call them? iRacer champions, and they made a name for themselves and obviously making a living doing it. And I just think it's just so cool, even though I don't know that much about it. And so Justin, you're just listening to y'all speak. What is your everyday now that you cover that, what does your day look like? You know, from start to finish, you're just writing articles about finished results of the different types of e-racing on the computer. You know, what does a typical day look like for Justin?
A typical day, I mean, it's different every day, I feel like, which is one of the coolest things about what I'm doing right now. They with where I'm at currently in the current season. Right now, my day is I wake up and I check Twitter. That's the first thing that I do. I want to check and see if there's any announcements or any news or any certain, things to write about that are out there that I may have, slept through or something like that.
Sure.
So, right now they're in the off season for the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series, which is the
Okay.
top level iRacing
The
series where
professionals.
what's that?
They're professionals. That's what they do for a living, most of them, right?
Right. Those guys are the 40 best iRacing oval sim racers.
In the
They've
world,
gone
in the world.
in the world. Yes, you've got
That's
guys
amazing,
that
man.
that are racing. Yeah, they're from all over. I mean, we've had guys from overseas in England that had competed in the series before. I believe actually no, I know for a fact the guy who won the first championship is over in England, Richard Towler.
Oh,
But they put on these competitions to find the 40 best oval sim racers, and they came up with the roster for this season just a couple of weeks ago. So now what these guys are doing is there are some teams. There are 20 teams in the series, and some of them are teams you might be familiar with, like RFK Racing, Junior Motorsports,
mhm.
that have these eNASCAR teams, and they're going out and they're reaching out to these drivers to try and get them to race for them. Each team is going to have two drivers that are competing for them, and they're going to pay these guys a salary. That I think it's a couple, maybe hundred to a couple $1,000 depending on the contracts that they come up with. So right now they're in that part of the season where they're signing contracts. Next week on Tuesday around this time, they're going to be racing for the first time. And iRacing is really cool where they're working together with NASCAR. That LA Clash Coliseum, that race, that track was created in iRacing before they broke ground at the Coliseum. They created that track. They helped NASCAR. iRacing helped NASCAR make that track and make different changes and come up with the final design. They had these top drivers, these top eNASCAR drivers, go out and drive on their computers to see how the different types of track configurations would work. Now they're bringing that track. They're going to do a race on the virtual version of the track next Tuesday, and that's only 5 days before the real thing happens. So by then we'll know where everybody is, where all 40 of these drivers are going to be driving for, and then they're going to have an 18 race championship season with a 4 race playoff and a championship for, not very much different from what real life is doing. And they're going to crown a champion at the end of the year, and they're going to give him a couple $100,000 for being the best of the best. So
That's amazing. Tell me something. How many racers have gone from that type of racing, which you're describing to me, to actually, do a lot of them race at a local racetrack somewhere in the country, or some of them, tell me some names I would be familiar with that we race with week in and week out, and whether it be the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series or the Xfinity Series or the Cup Series, I think it's amazing,
I mean, definitely the most famous one that we could think of is from a computer would be William Byron. Everybody says he started on a computer on iRacing, but William was also doing short tracks and stuff like that at the same time. William Byron's an obvious example. Josh Berry's probably the latest example of that. He was in that series in 2010 in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series. He raced, and another person in that series was Dale Jr. Dale Jr. is actually the guy who won the very first eNASCAR sanctioned race back in 2010 at
Really?
Daytona, which is a very, very fun fact.
Yeah.
He won that on a fuel mileage run, right, Justin? It was like a fuel mileage race?
They ended up having a caution with like 4 laps to go, and at that time they didn't have green, white checkers or overtimes or anything like that. So Dale Jr., he was about maybe 2 laps short. He got really lucky, and he was able to make it and win that race.
Well, Justin, the record books show Dale Earnhardt Jr. won the first race. Didn't tell you how he did it, and it don't really matter. He won the race,
course,
right?
Definitely.
So that's pretty cool, man.
There are 2 guys this season that are racing for RFK Racing in the eNASCAR series. They're both local short track guys. One of them is actually Parker Retzlaff, who's got a ride with RSS Racing this year for a couple of races. So he's going to be doing the eNASCAR full time in their number 6 car for RFK Racing while he's also competing in the Xfinity series. You've also got like, and this is now I'm like going from the eNASCAR and I'm going on a completely different tangent.
That's okay. It's okay. We do that a lot on our podcast. We're like ping pong balls at times. That's what makes it kind of cool, so.
Yeah, I mean, you've got this top level competition of guys that are competing for hundreds of thousands of dollars, but then you also got like the normal everyday racer who's just going out there to just have some fun. There's a league that exists that I'm lucky enough to be a part of called Monday Night Racing. We just had a race last night. Monday Night Racing is a league of NASCAR drivers, of industry members, NASCAR industry members, and other motorsports from all over the place, like Ron Capps from NHRA, Connor Daly from IndyCar, Shane Van Gisbergen from Supercars. The founders of Monday Night Racing, Ford Martin and Paul Sutton, have put together this league of like just people who just want to race. And this is kind of born from the eNASCAR Pro Invitational that was on TV. Mm-hmm. A lot of those guys, they went out there because they didn't have anything better to do. Nobody was racing at the time. But some of those guys, like Kyle Busch for one, like Dale Jr., they want to keep racing now that there's no Pro Invitational series anymore. And where they go to Monday Night Racing. Right. And we've got, like I said, Kyle Busch, Dale Jr., NFL. I believe he was a safety. Bernard Pollard Jr. races in our league. Cole Irvin, who is a baseball player for the Oakland Athletics, races in. Mike Clay, he's a NFL journalist, and now that the NFL season's over, he's racing with us again. Will Rogers, Ryan Vargas, Preston Pardis, all guys that have competed in the NASCAR Xfinity series. They're in this Monday Night Racing. So there is a lot of crossover of the real life racing with the virtual racing that you get to see just all over the iRacing service, and even on other services too, like R Factor, where in that 24-hour Le Mans race, Max Verstappen led for the first 6 hours of the event. The world champion in Formula One was on his computer racing.
Isn't that amazing, man?
It's insane.
That is so cool. I just, just hearing you speak about it and hearing your passion about it, it just makes me want to iRace, And I have to be honest with you, man, I'm so busy that I think I probably iRace once or twice in my lifetime, you know what I mean? And the guys that do it are really, it's a talent, man. It's not easy by no means. What little I've been exposed to it, it let me know right away. It's like playing golf. You know what I mean? It's like, man, you gotta race. Just like any race car driver, you get better, you race, and you hone your skills. But man, that iRacing, God, those guys are really, really good. So man, what a cool. Well, that is just so cool. I just love it that our sport has wrapped their arms and embraced that, because, like William Byron and some of these other racers you're talking about. And man, it's just, it's amazing, and how, I hear how real it is. And just, something that really just grabs my attention is the money side of it. The kind of money that these guys are making is amazing. Who would ever thought that you could race on a computer and make a living doing that? I would have never thought that would have ever happened.
So David, along those same lines too, of the money that's being made and such, I would think, Justin, that these teams that you mentioned are, competing for drivers that have, it's free agency. What are the teams providing? What is the incentive for joining one team versus another? What are they providing these drivers here?
Yeah,
Great
sure.
question.
I mean, I know that the free agency period, which it's already over, like everybody's all decided and everybody knows where they're going, but like some guys would pick different teams based on monetary value, like what they were going to get in their contract, or if they were going to get any sim racing like peripherals or anything like that, like if they were going to get like a new racing wheel or
Wow.
pedals or system or anything like that. New computer might be a part of the deal. They would broker in these terms. They if people were getting different sponsorship or anything like that, because there's sponsorship in e-racing too. There, you gotta with the guys that the teams are going out to go for, the sponsors got to be cool with them too. So it's I think there are some teams that are definitely going to be able to get the better drivers as opposed to some of the other teams that maybe don't have the same type of funding. I don't want to list any names or anything like that because it's not my place, but
Right.
there were definitely teams that I've heard from in my, going out and checking and seeing where everybody landed, that they were like, man, we really wanted to get this driver, but he just was out of our price range. We couldn't afford him. So he ended up on a different team that could afford him. And
Go ahead, Justin. I'm sorry.
it's all good. It's all good. I mean,
Man, if you're a young kid and you want to race cars, I mean, if this would have been around when I was a kid, man, I was like you guys, man. I was like you, Justin, and Tyler and Dominic. I just wanted to be close to it, just touch it, feel it. And man, at the local roller skating rink, they had a race car game, and every time they had a all night skate deal, they had contests, and man, I won that freaking race car trophy every, twice a year. Nobody could beat me, but I was so good at it. But and I still see people say, man, you were the racing king on that machine, but that's what you did. And just hearing you talk and the question that Tyler answers is a great question, because it's like, man, I want to come drive for you because if I win, I want you to put me in a real race car. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, who has the ability where if I can win e-racing or win on the computer, I want to go into the real thing. You know what I mean? But man, what a cool way of getting somewhere, becoming an iRacing phenomenon or just champion is amazing, and to hear you talk about all the stars of all forms of motorsports that are involved in it is just amazing. For me, I don't have the time. I'm constantly moving and busy. It don't fit how I live and what I do. You know what I mean? But man, the opportunities, and for people that their lives are maybe a little bit different than mine, man, what a cool way. I hear a lot of the drivers, Timmy Hill, Stephen Light, I hear a lot of my competitors that are my friends, they're constantly on the iRacing deal, practicing somewhere or just racing in a race. And it's just, it's the coolest thing, but to think that I'm going to get on here just tomorrow and be good at it and try to compete with them, I mean, that's never going to happen. These guys are really, really, really good. It's amazing.
Yeah. And let me jump in one more question, and then we'll move on to our news and notes here in just a second. But Justin, what I'm curious of is, in your opinion, when you look ahead at the future of the sport and what this is doing to attract a younger audience, and when you see, yes, we are bringing practice and qualifying sessions back to every race this year, but it's going to be more limited than it's been before. How important do you think e-racing is to the future of NASCAR?
Sure. I mean, you just look at the what I was talking about before with the LA Coliseum. They made that track on iRacing. If these guys want to go and get some practice on Wednesday morning, that track's going to be available for the public to go and download, and they can get a somewhat of a feel of what that track might race like. They've done the same thing for Bristol when they put dirt on it. They did the same thing for Daytona Road Course when they put the turtles off of turn 4. They've done the same thing for Circuit of the Americas.
Awesome. Yep.
They, when there are track reconfigurations like Atlanta that's coming up, they work together with iRacing as well in getting that together. The next gen NASCAR Cup car was created in part with help from iRacing to try and get a feel for it before one of those cars even ever hit the track. So it was, the technology is there. And I believe it was Kyle Busch who had said at one point that it's about 70-30, where it's about 70% of the actual feeling that you'll get in a race car. Of course, you're not going to get the movement that you get in the seat of the car. I mean, you could get a motion rig, but I mean, it's not going to be completely accurate.
Lateral forces, yeah, but still, and to hear you say 70-30, that's, I was kind of thinking to myself, how 100%, how accurate, and man, that's pretty cool for Kyle Busch to say 70-30. That's amazing, really.
Yeah, I don't remember where or when he said that, but I remember that sticking in my head hearing him say it once around the time that the Pro Invitational was happening. So it's definitely there, and a lot of these guys that are getting on the service are definitely taking advantage of it. I remember I was taking some photography pictures for Ryan Vargas last year when he was going in to go to Homestead for the first time, and he was getting right up against the wall trying to see how that car would react up in the top lane around that track. And he was telling me, like, there's no practice going on right now. There's no qualifying. My first lap is going to be the first lap of the race. So I need to get some type of feeling for this car before I get in there. And right now that only avenue is iRacing. So it's, of course, now with practice coming back, that's going to change a little bit. But I mean, they can still, before they show up to the track and get on the track for the first time for the practice lap, maybe have a little bit of an idea through these programs like iRacing.
Great tool.
Yeah,
Great
it
tool.
is. It is.
Absolutely.
Guys, let's go ahead and get to our news and notes segment. Dominic Aragon takes it away from here. Dom, some big news in regards to the broadcast in the Daytona 500, as well as the Clash on Fox.
We all saw the breaking news on Saturday night break during the Packers 49ers game. So sorry about my Packers, guys. Go Packers. But Tony Stewart will be joining the NASCAR Fox broadcast booth for the Clash and the Daytona 500 in February. Stewart's going to be joined alongside Clint Boyer and Mike Joy in the broadcast booth. Stewart replaces Jeff Gordon for at least 2 races in the booth. And guys, from what I've been hearing, they're looking at doing possibly a rotating panel for the 2022 season with Boyer and Joy up in the booth. I'm sure, Tyler, you could weigh in a little more on that with your connections.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like it's going to be, that they have Stewart lined up for those first 2 races, and then they'll rotate the rest of the season from there. And maybe it's a deal where it's an audition for Tony. If he does well enough, maybe they'll just keep him around of some sorts. I think Tony's going to be terrific. He and Boyer together. I would expect those broadcasts to be phenomenal. It's going to be highly entertaining, I think. And Tony's done a great job when he's been an analyst before. He's not going to be vanilla at it. I think he'll do a good job. Justin, what's your thoughts on Tony heading up in the booth, joining the Fox team, those 2 races?
I think it's more Tony than Fox with the whole just being 2 races. I don't think anybody can tie down Tony Stewart in one place for more than a couple of opportunities at that. He's got a lot going on with SRX and his dirt racing opportunities and of course owning the NASCAR team. So Tony being in the booth, I'm really looking forward to it. And whoever else they get, I mean. Boyer, of course, is going to be great. He's been great the last couple seasons, and Mike Joy, of course. I'd love to see them get like Larry Mack back in the booth, honestly, but it's Tony Stewart's going to be great. I can't wait for it.
David, what do you think about Tony getting in the booth, and who are some names maybe you'd like to see up there at some point this year on Fox?
Well, I just think it's brilliant on Fox's part because you want somebody that's 100% racer. That passion Tony don't hold back. He tells it like it is, whether we like it or not, the fans like it or not. So, you're going to get what's on his mind and how he sees it happening. You know what I mean? So I think the fans are going to get a true perspective when he's speaking about what's going on the racetrack. And Tony's not one, like you said, to sugarcoat anything. And, and his personality and Boyer's, I just think, man, I think that's brilliant, and I think we're looking at maybe, let's see how it goes, but you may be looking at a future broadcast, A-list team right there. You know what I mean? But pretty cool. I'm excited for Tony. I'm excited for the NASCAR race fans, the viewers that are going to be watching on television. I think they're going to, I think it's really going to enhance the broadcast, bringing not only Clint Boyer, but Tony Stewart and Mike Joy. I think it's going to be amazing. And I'm excited about it.
Dominic, I was thinking about this scenario here. We mentioned that Tony doesn't sugarcoat anything. And you got these next-gen cars, which we know are pretty limited right now in supply. In those two races, I mean, you would never wish anyone, any harm, any damage of some sorts. But if there is a scenario where a couple Stewart Haas cars crash at Daytona or the Clash, I'd be very intrigued to hear what Tony has to say, his reaction in real time, what that's going to be like.
I feel like, yeah, Tony's not going to hold back. He's going to be very vocal on how he feels about that. He'll be saying, oh, crap, that's a $1 million crash right there. I could already hear Tony Stewart saying something like that. He's going to be very honest about it. And I think he's going to bring that perspective from the ownership side. And, of course, and I believe he tested at Bowman Gray. But I think there's going to be some really good insight Tony's going to be able to offer over those next couple of races, especially getting behind the wheel from the testing.
Yeah. As far as names potentially to hit that Fox booth at some point this year, who comes to mind, Dominic? Who do you think you'd like to see up there?
Man, I'd like to see David Starr up there doing some stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to stay in the driver's seat for a while, you know what I mean? And it'd be kind of cool to, people have mentioned that to me over the years, and I'm like, man, I'm just, for them to drag me out of the driver's seat and put me in the booth, I'd like to try it maybe in a truck race or something sometime down the road. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. And I think Tyler too, really thinking about, I remember seeing an article earlier this week too, that Mark Martin was asked about it and he kind of just entertained the idea a little bit, but somebody like that too, or Ricky Rudd, Jeff Bodine, somebody that has
Carl Edwards.
Yeah. Edwards, I think at one time even wanted to pursue the broadcasting after his racing days were over. To see somebody like that would be awesome in the booth. Somebody
that comes to mind too, I know that she wasn't that great of a racer, but Danica has done very well on TV when she's covered IndyCar or F1, whatever. I think Danica or SRX. I'd like to see Danica get a shot in the booth maybe for a couple races. Justin, who would you like to see maybe do a couple these Fox races here?
You know who was really good, and this is another thing with. I'm going to kick it back to eRacing for a second. A broadcast last week for Monday Night Racing actually had Bobby Labonte as a color commentator for the race, and he did a really good job. He was up there with Darrell Waltrip, which, funny enough, talking about Fox broadcasters and all that stuff. So maybe somebody like a Bobby Labonte could bring an interesting perspective to a NASCAR race.
Yeah, and he's employed with Fox too, so I'm sure that could be easily done. So
here's the other one, Tyler, Jimmy Johnson.
Yes. In fact, I'll say this much, because he is not employed by a network, I would be surprised if Jimmy doesn't do a race this year.
Especially at a track where he won a lot, like a California Speedway or Autoclip Speedway where he's from, like something like that where there's a hometown connection. It'd be really cool to see Jimmy step.
And knowing that the IndyCar schedule's limited, yeah, that one would surprise me. Somebody has screwed up at Fox if Jimmy doesn't do a race or two this year. I think that's a safe bet. That's a good call. So the guy that I could tell you, I would be just totally shocked if he called a race, if we ever saw him touch a microphone. I don't think we're getting Matt Kenseth in the booth.
And he would be great in the booth too. He's got that dry sense of humor and he's so bland and he's got all these witty jokes to him. And Matt's very honest too. It'd be awesome in the booth.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening, but we'll see. What else is going on, Dom?
Well, NASCAR on Monday announced that they are stiffening up penalties in the NASCAR Cup Series, adding some sections to the rule book. So NASCAR.com was the first to report that officials have released a more stringent penalty structure in 2022, introducing a 3-tiered system. So in this system, it was added to the rulebook on Monday, January 24th, puts in place rules to protect with the debut of the next-gen car model. So L3 penalties would be the highest form of penalty in this tiered system. And guys, we're seeing some potential penalties that may actually hit the Cup Series for the first time ever. And we're talking including loss of playoff points, not only deduction of Cup points and having members thrown out, but also stripping teams of playoff eligibility. When I think of playoff eligibility being stripped and like bowl games and NCAA, I think of that kind of thing. I would have never thought NASCAR town.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, we've only seen playoff eligibility taken away one time with the Michael Waltrip racing incident a few years back.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing I can recall where somebody was straight up taken out of the playoffs. But it's an interesting idea. Justin, what did you make of these new penalties?
I think they're going to be a necessary evil. Definitely with the way that the next gen's going to a more streamlined type of car where they're not going to have as much input into what's going into the car. A lot of those parts are manufactured from one person, one manufacturer. So I think it's necessary to make sure that the everything's as fair as it can be, but you got to also realize that they're going to be trying to find every single advantage that they can. So I'm curious to see when that first L3 penalty gets handed down.
David, as somebody that's been handed some penalties in the past, what do you think of this new structure, this setup here?
We're racers. You got crew chiefs, you got engineers. That's what we do, man. You're looking for an edge. You're trying to find something that works and that will give you an edge. That's just racing. I don't care what form of racing it is. The way you tune the motor, the handling, aero, you're always looking for an edge, and they have streamlined the race car like Justin's saying, and it makes it, to me, now that it is streamlined and everybody buys the same parts from the same manufacturer, I mean, everybody's going to have the same parts and pieces. To me, just thinking, I was thinking to myself that, man, there's going to be a lot of engineering going on. You know what I mean? The engineers looking how to figure out how to manipulate, how to make something better with what you have, the parts and pieces you have to work with, And I was just listening to y'all, and I've been so busy myself, I hadn't really kept up with the penalties that the fines and that are going to be happening when they catch somebody bending the rules. You know what I mean? But man, with this new car and the way they streamlined everything and the same parts and pieces and all that, to me, when I was learning months and months ago about this car, I was just thinking, man, the engineers and the crew chiefs, I mean, they're going to be trying to figure out how to gain an edge. You know what I mean? So it's the interesting part is, the car is so new and so different. How do you write a rule book? What's inside that box and what's outside the box? You know what I mean? So it's going to be interesting, that process, you know what I mean? And when somebody finds something and they do something, or and then NASCAR finds it, is it really a penalty? Is it really, I mean, where's the line in the sand drawn? You know what I mean? So it's very intriguing and very interesting to see how this season is going to play out when you're talking about fines and people doing what they can to try to gain an edge. You know what I mean? We've heard it over the years, cheating, and I don't know if it's so much cheating. It's just, it's just what racers do. It's what racing people do. It's what engineers do. It's what crew chiefs do. You're just trying to figure out how to make the car go faster, whether that be, how do you make it drive better handling? How do you find more horsepower, more torque? How do you get more downforce, which creates grip? and less drag. You know what I mean? So it's man, to me, it's very intriguing because this car is completely new and streamlined, and to me, I was just thinking there's going to be a lot of penalties this year because, what's inside that box and what's outside the box, you know what I mean? And so I don't know. I think it's very interesting and people are going to be paying attention to it, and can you imagine winning a race or two, and then next thing you know, you get caught doing something that NASCAR thinks outside the box, and they penalize you, and you're not part of the chase or the, you know what I mean? So it's going to be very interesting to see how it's policed.
So along those lines, Dominic, this is what I would wonder. When I know that we've kind of picked on Michael Waltrip Racing, RIP tonight. When they first entered the sport, we all know about the jet fuel, incident and such, and the penalties that they suffered from that. I would guess that because of this being a new car and trying to arrange everything and such, when you get to the Clash and, Daytona and all this, I would think there's going to be a lot of penalties assessed, a lot of toying around just because people are trying to figure out this car, even, unintentionally, trying to find an edge of some sorts. I would guess there's a good chance that happens for a decent number of teams those first few weeks.
I can see that. We'll see some penalties announced, and as we all know, teams will do their best to appeal, and we'll see the appeal process. But you're right. I think there's going to be a lot of kinks to work out, a lot of different moving parts, and no pun intended, right? Because there's so many parts with this car. But I think you're right, Tyler. There's going to be a lot of teams trying to figure out, and like we've discussed, trying to get that competitive edge. David said it best. They're all racers. You want that competitive edge. How can you get more tenths on the racetrack or shave off tenths on the racetrack and just be that much quicker? There will be, I think, some growing pains.
Yeah, I think so. Final segment before we wrap up the show this week. It's time for our Ask David segment. We ask you to submit questions to us on Facebook, Twitter, and by email, davidstarpodcast@gmail.com. And we go to the Twitter inbox first. Let's go to this question from friend of the show, John Haverland, chiming in at John Haverland. He says, "Hey, Justin, big fan." That's nice. "I was wondering which New York football team will have the better record next year, and why will it be the Jets?"
I don't know about that, buddy. The Giants have actually done some work this offseason to get rid of some of the fat, and I'm very much looking forward to the future of the New York Football Giants. But unfortunately, I think we're both beat. I think Buffalo's going to have another fantastic season again next year.
That's a good answer. Yes. Buffalo will be very good. David, speaking of that, how about that game Sunday night between the Bills and the Chiefs? That was one of the best games I've ever seen.
Man, I was going to talk about it earlier. That was a Super Bowl, dude. I mean, you can't get any better. Man, that Buffalo team, oh my God. I mean, that was amazing. That was probably one of the best football games I've ever seen. Was that amazing? That was unbelievable, man. I mean, both those quarterbacks, both those teams. I mean, and unfortunately, the agony of defeat. Somebody's got to lose. You know what I mean? And I was trying to figure out who's going to lose this game, because it's like when the offense touches the ball, they score, and just because of the rules that the NFL have, if you score a touchdown, you're first, you win the toss and you get the ball, and you score a touchdown, the game's over with. But man, I feel like that in the future that the NFL will come out and say, hey, on the playoff games, each team has an opportunity to score, and you just keep going until, it's equal. And then, if Buffalo would have got the ball back and would have scored, and then obviously that could have kicked off, and Kansas City would have kicked a field goal or another touchdown. I mean, until whoever wins. But man, unbelievable weekend. My hero and my guy that Tom Brady. I mean, that game was amazing. I mean, when the fourth quarter started, it was 27-3. You know what I mean? And they couldn't keep the defensive lineman off Tom Brady. He didn't even have a chance to throw the ball. They kept tackling him, you know what I mean? And for them to come back at the end and have a shot at winning, was amazing, man. It's just God, just like this past weekend, the NFL, dude, it don't get much better than that, man. It was pretty awesome. What's y'all's thoughts? I mean,
Man,
unbelievable.
that was the best weekend of football I've seen in my life, and that's not an
Yes.
exaggeration. All 4 games were just incredible, and like you said, David, the Bills Chiefs game felt like the Super Bowl. Can't get any better than that. I think whoever was going to win that game was going to go on and win the Super Bowl. I feel very good about my Kansas City Chiefs this week against Cincinnati, and then a potential matchup with the Rams or the 49ers in the Super Bowl at that point. Unfortunate for the Chiefs that more than likely for the second straight year, they're going to have to play at their opponent's stadium for the Super Bowl. I think the Rams will probably beat the Niners this week, and we'll have a Chiefs-Rams Super Bowl when it's all said and done. Dominic, you're on the unfortunate side of things with your Packers falling to the Niners, but you'd called it with Stanton a couple weeks ago. He owes you some wine now.
He sure does. If you recall 2 weeks ago on the show, I didn't have faith in the Packers. I didn't think they were going to make it to the Super Bowl. I had said on this show, my Packers will make it to the NFC Championship game and choke like they're good at. They didn't even get to do that. But yes, I did text Stan right away, and he read it right away. He didn't respond. But Stan, I know you're listening. Looking forward to trying that family Barrett wine.
Yeah, it was amazing to see Green Bay go down in the weather conditions, man. You would have thought if anybody could have, that would have been to their advantage to play in that type of weather conditions. Man, I was just shocked how that ended as well.
David, that Mason Crosby blocked field goal right before halftime. Like, oh, that just did not sit well with me. That just kind of set the mood for the rest of the game.
Unbelievable, man. But just what a football game,
David, you're mentioning the overtime rules, how stupid they are in the NFL, and just drives me crazy. Even though my team won, I still feel shorted. That Josh Allen didn't get a chance to touch the football. But what I like to remind folks all the time is the best overtime in all of sports belongs to NASCAR. I love the green, white checker finish. It doesn't get better than that.
It doesn't get any better than that, man. When there's a green, white checkered, I mean, man, it's just, man, our sport has done it right. Just the way the chase format, the green, white checkered, it's just amazing. We are truly blessed to be part of such a awesome sport from all aspects. But you look at the competition side and the way the races end, and our playoff format, and the green, white checkered, you know what I mean? It's amazing. It's exciting. And man, I love it, every sport, you look at the NFL, you look at NASCAR, you look at Major League Baseball. I mean, you can always pick, there's always going to be somebody to criticize something, you know what I mean? But man, I just feel like I'm so proud of NASCAR and the product we have on the racetrack and the way our championship is crowned. It's just, man, I just thought I think it's brought new fans over the last 6-7 years to our sport, just because people are tuning in because it's exciting.
Last thing, then we'll get to our next question. Justin, what do you think of the games this weekend? These the AFC and NFC title game here. How do you think it's going to play out?
Got a coworker who's a really big San Francisco fan, so I'm kind of rooting for her to get her team into the Super Bowl. But I'm like you. I think the Rams have definitely got the better overall team. So we'll see what happens in that one. And I definitely Chiefs all the way. Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl this year. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you all are honorary members of the Chiefs Kingdom. We'll bring you in. Welcome aboard. The next question in the inbox that we have for you. This one's pretty funny for Justin. Justin and Kevin McAdams on Twitter wants to know what is his routine to keep his skin so young and vibrant.
Shower. I wash my face. I don't know. What do you want from me, Kevin? I wash regularly. It's the normal type of. I don't do anything different, buddy.
Justin, just tell him it's all that good living, dude. You got to know how to live, man.
It's the child in me of with all these video games that I get to be around all the time. So there you go.
David, what does Kim make you put on your face to keep you so young?
Man, I'm all unshaved and burnt my nose, man. She was just telling me, "Have you looked in the mirror lately?" But it's all good, man. Hey.
Hey, little pro tip there, guys. So this is all I do. Shout out to Front Row Motorsports and Anthony Alfredo. I love those dude wipes. It's like a shower for your face. That stuff is magical. Everybody, and they're not paying us for this. Everybody at some point needs to own a thing of dude wipes. Like, you just keep those around and it'll change your life, Dominic.
Never tried dude wipes. I've seen them were like $9 a package or something at the store. So if they're that highly priced, they must be that good.
Yeah, I know inflation hasn't been too kind to us lately, but it's worth it for the dude wipes. They haven't paid me to say that either. Guys, this has been a fun hour with Justin. Justin, before we kind of wrap up things, plug away. Where can people find all the great stuff you're up to, and what's the best place to follow all that, man?
I'm posting all the time on Twitter. You can follow me at Justin Melillo. I've also got written work that you can follow at Traction GG and at the Racing Experts, of course. I'm going to be doing a lot more with the Racing Experts this year than I did last year because of certain things that have happened to me in the last couple of months. So anyway, yeah, definitely give all those a follow, like and all that stuff, and yeah, we'll see you on the internet.
See you on the internet. I love it. It's a good place to be. Dominic, what's going on this week at the Racing Experts?
Man, we'll just continue to cover the daily news and happenings around the sport and everything that's going on in motorsports. And as I give them a shout out every week on the show, Justin Melillo, Jonathan Field, they keep the site going. Kyle Stevens, we have some really good guys who are really making the wheels turn on our operation. And Justin and I couldn't be more proud of who we have associated with that. So we'll just continue to cover the sport and just continue to keep plugging away. How about you, Tyler?
It's good times. Be home with family and such, and we got a big week on the Jones Sport this week. Going to be joined by Ron the Show Hewley from 610 in Houston, as we'll be talking all things NFL playoffs. That show will be out on Thursday, so check that out. Download and subscribe to the Jones Sport, as well as this show and the rest of the Studio Soapbox Network as well. A lot of stuff going on there. David, what's happening in your world?
And just getting ready, hopefully, to announce what we're doing in 2022. I'm excited about all that, and just just finalizing some stuff up and just working, getting ready for our first racing school, February the 27th at Texas Motor Speedway. So just Justin, why don't you ever answer me on Twitter, man? I'm always asking you questions. You never get back to me.
Oh, come on now.
I don't know if David's ever sent a tweet in his life, but.
Yeah, that's
He's got a little thing we call a ghostwriter,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know, Tyler. I don't know if I buy all that because I've been sitting next to David or when we've all been around, and what's David doing? He's surfing social media on his phone.
Oh yes, and he'll respond to us on Snapchat.
Oh heck yeah, man! I'm moving up in the world, man. I'm Snapchatting.
Yeah. Next thing we got to work on, David, is a Snapchat streak.
What?
Exactly. Oh man.
Hey Justin, thanks for joining us, buddy. I'm excited that we're all going to be in Daytona. That's going to be fun. But I don't think you'll find us all crammed up in a hotel room, though.
Looking forward to it. Thanks again for having me on. It really was a fun time tonight.
Yeah, it was. And we appreciate you, the listener, for joining us. As always, subscribe to Let's Go Racing with David Starr. New episodes out each and every Wednesday on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, as well as YouTube. Leave us a 5-star review or don't leave us one at all. Hit that like button. We certainly would appreciate that. As always, you can hit us up on Twitter at Star Podcast, Facebook.com/David Starr Podcast, and by email at davidstarpodcast@gmail.com. For Dominic Aragon and David Starr, Tyler Jones, thanks so long. It's been another edition of Let's Go Racing. We'll put the checkered flag out. We'll see you next week.